Welcome to the Grassroots To Greatness podcast. Today we have Lee Suter with us, who is a grassroots coach and a former FA tutor who has worked in the game for a long time. Lee will go through his extensive background in different settings in the game. And the reason we wanted Lee on this podcast is he's got a lot of experience in setting up a club culture and philosophy, as well as implementing a team culture and philosophy. Lee has helped grow a football club in Kent from a small club that he's run alongside their chairman and all their other staff. It is now a huge club which always comes across as having good morals, good values, try to help people out, try to be a great place for their players to play. It's a club that I've always had a lot of respect for, and a club that I always signpost people to say, well, look at how they do things because they set the example. So as well as going through the culture and philosophy stuff, we talk about how they try to help volunteers and ways that you can help volunteers. And Lee's rules, 4 rules he has for his teams. I've stolen so many things like this off Lee about having his 4 rules or 3 words, why he uses it, how it works and how you can use that in your team. And we also delve into how you can make your club more inclusive. So there is loads of tips for coaches in here, as well as people that work within Grassroots Club who want to improve their team as well as the whole club around them. Let us know what you think after you had a listen, and there's some really good stuff in here from Lee. Enjoy the podcast. Today, welcome to the podcast, Lee.
Thanks, Seb. It's good to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
No problem at all. So we start every podcast with, can you just talk us through your coaching journey so far?
Yeah, so probably not a conventional journey. I didn't really play football as a kid. I've probably played more football in my 30s and now 40s than I ever have. So football wasn't my number one sport until early teens. And I can remember getting into it and getting a little bit obsessed with Aston Villa, my club, and watching them and getting into it. And then there was a massive obsession, which I think all around our generation got into, which was Championship Manager. And that sparked an interest in coaching and tactics and everything like that, and a bit of an obsession with that, and probably played it too much. But my coaching experience really ignited just when I was 17, I believe, and I was sort of looking at what do I want to do in life, where do I want to go, what does work look like for me and employability, and I just made the decision I wanted to volunteer and give back to my community. So that sparked off there. And I've been at Faversham Strike Force now for 24 years, and in between that time I've been a coach mentor, coach tutor, and everything in between really.
Excellent. So Strike Force, as obviously I know as a local club, what was the size of Strike Force when you started, and what is the size of it now?
Wow, I don't know the specifics on when I started, because I was probably a naive 17-year-old going into it and just saw exactly what was in front of me rather than a community organisation. But Strike Force is 25 years this year, since Gary founded it in 99, and when they started in 99 they had an under-10s and under-11s. We're just, as we start the new season, or the 24-25 season, it's 52 teams. 12 women's teams, 7 disability teams, adult teams playing at step 6, women's teams, little lionesses, mini bolts and everything in between. We're a real community organisation that is trying to be inclusive and representative of our town and local area. So yeah, we're a proud 3-star England accredited club, and we're trying to grow as best we can within the restrictions of facilities.
So I've got Strike Force have actually played a part through my coaching journey. Interestingly, when I first started coaching 20 odd years ago, Strike Force had just been founded and been running for a few years. And my under-7s team at Ramsgate, which was the first team I coached, were a good team. And this is where I've talked on podcasts before. I look back in a bit of horror at how I coached then, because I was like obsessed with winning, and we had a good group. And actually, the other really good team at that age was Strike Force, and we played against each other in tournaments. I remember one summer we got to basically to the finals or semi-final and played each other every time. And Strike Force beat us every time, but there was always really good games. And what I loved about those games as well is they were really competitive, but like in a good way. And then going on from that, I remember when I first started working at Gills, I then ended up coaching a load of players at Gills that were in that original Strike Force team. But Strike Force as a club, from my experiences, obviously are one of the best run clubs in the county. Obviously because of the work itself Gary does, and the volunteers there. And we've had a lot of your coaches on our courses who I would say always represent the values of the club from my experiences with them. So explain what you see the values of the club are and what you try to get the coaches to how to represent the club.
Yeah, I think in Grassroots that's a real complex question around who are we and what do we want to be portrayed. So our overarching value or philosophy is about helping each player to be the best they can. You probably need to subject the word player and replace it with person. We really want to develop that person. What I would say, and I think one of our positives is we almost add some scaffolding on that, is this is how we like our volunteers to behave and show them values, but we're not really restricted to those. So we don't say this is how you have to be all of the time, and this is how we want you to coach every team, and we want a load of Gary Axford and Lee Suter clones coaching everyone. We don't want that. So we provide a lot of freedom of autonomy to our coaches to go about delivering that value of helping people and players be the best they can. What we do is we add resources around that, around mentoring, opportunities to complete qualifications, learn from others, shadowing, showcasing what good looks like, and then we allow them to have a go at it. I think with the best will in the world, when we're appointing volunteers, we try to appoint good people with good values. And I think that's really important. We don't always get it right, but with a workforce of over 160 now volunteers, I think we're in a really good position to do that. So we also use some consistent messages when we're talking to our coaches around, can you leave stuff in a better place than when you found it, be it a team, a site, a facility, an experience. Can you leave it in a better experience than when you picked it up? And same when you're using our kit and equipment, can you leave it how you'd like to find it? So we're setting in good values around look after people, look after the resources you've got, and then the rest will look after itself.
So that's obviously 160 volunteers. In the modern world, it's getting harder and harder to get volunteers. How have you gone about attracting kind of so many, but then how do you support them all the time they're with the club?
Yeah, absolutely. Getting any volunteers into any organisation now, not just football, is really difficult. I think people value their own time more than they ever have done. So if you think about any experience you do in life now, is people want it quick and they want it now. So you want to play football, you want to turn up in your kit, go home, done. That's my experience with football. Or you go and do an experience at a theme park or anything like that. You want your experience now, you want it instant, and then you want to move on to the next thing because you value your time. So I think with volunteers, it's about attracting them in and putting as many resources and support in place to make sure they maximise their time with us. So be it other volunteer networks like our welfare team taking on board the safeguarding challenges, the coach compliances, making sure they've got the kit and equipment they need to deliver good fun sessions, which then in turn makes their experience with us. We've bolted on, we make sure we celebrate the hidden benefits around CV embellishment. So by coming on board, you can improve your CVs, your confidence, your mental health, your well-being, your connectivity with your community, understanding who's within your community and how you connect with them. Also the physical benefits, we fully fund our coaching qualifications. We don't say within 6 months we'll give you your money back if you stay. We'd rather have people educated and leave than not educated and stay. So we're right behind them now. We provide them with mentors, coach support officers. We have WhatsApp groups that people can touch into. So I think for us it's about maximising the resources they need and never saying no to anything really within reason. If we can afford it and it's achievable, let's support them with that. And if it's a qualification or a laptop for an administrator, can we just make sure we provide them with maximum resources?
Yeah, I suppose because we ask a lot, and I've always posed a question with grassroots clubs: at what point do they professionalise in terms of, like, some of them are big businesses really, they're not small businesses with like a couple of £1,000 coming through. When you've got 50, 60, 70, 80, some clubs got 100 teams, for example. Do you think they'll ever get to a point where clubs will go, right, we need an administrator, a secretary, we'll make these all paid jobs, or do you think it will always remain voluntary?
It's a really good question, and it's something that I think if you get to a certain stage where you need to reimburse people for their time, I think it's almost chicken and egg, because the more successful club you are, the more people want to join you. The more people that want to join you, the more infrastructure you need around you, both financially and in terms of workforce, volunteered or paid. So I think there is a case to say that we need to have honorariums or reimbursements, or we look to appoint someone full time. I think the balance there, and it's a really sensitive balance, is we can't employ everyone. And if we employ one person full time, does that devalue the work of our volunteers? So you've got to find that balance. And also, does everyone just start, if that person's employed full time, for example, does everyone just start chucking everything their way because they're the ones who get paid? I think what we're really good in this country is we value volunteers, we look after volunteers, and it is the heartbeat of everything we do in this country, really. We rely on a lot of volunteering goodwill in this country. It is one of our key values as a nation, really. But do we lose that if we start employing people? I don't know. I think there's probably a fine balance.
Yeah, and I think for me the volunteer side is, the work they put in is unbelievable, and obviously at your club as well. So like you said, the more support you can provide them, the better. The more coaching qualification you can provide them, the better. And getting experts in, people with it, we probably don't tap into people with a skill set as much as we should do, especially from a volunteer point of view. So clubs always look at, can I get coaches? Can I get assistant coaches? Can I get someone to do welfare? But actually, if you look around the parents you've got and the people within the club, there's probably people with like accounting skill sets, legal skill sets, pitch facility, stuff like that. So probably tapping in and finding out who they are is, how do you do that? How do you find out who is willing to help, and then what skill sets have they got that can help?
Yeah, so what we do in the club is, when you complete an expression of interest form, so a parent or a player expresses an interest in joining Foreign Strike Force, one of the questions we ask is, would you consider volunteering? So we understand that straight off the bat. I imagine when it comes to expressions of interest, everyone says yes, because it might get their child or themselves through the door. But then when it comes to completing their membership form with us to officially join the club, we ask them two really important questions. Is, do you have a trade which you might be able to offer the club? And the second one is, we've just changed it to a multiple choice, is what area of the club might you be interested in? Coaching, admin, welfare, facilities. So we can start to tap into that a little bit more and understand who we work with. But the club just doesn't rely on those volunteers who turn up week in, week out to do training or matches or admin behind the scenes every day, a couple of hours a day. We also have our own facilities, and we also need experts time to time. So we might go to that database and go, we need a plumber. Let's go through our database and find a plumber who might do us a deal or might give us some time for free. Also, on the other hand, we might have a legal issue, and we might be able to tap into a solicitor or a lawyer and go, can you help us with this? Can you look through this document? Or we're being challenged by a parent on this. Where do we legally stand? So that's how we do it. We do it by collecting data. I find if you look at our volunteer database, 160 volunteers, I'll probably say 98% of them have an official connection with the club other than volunteering, i.e. they've got a child playing for the club. We very rarely, unless it's a university student or a placement, do we get people just coming out of nowhere and going, I want to volunteer. So that doesn't really happen. So we need to rely on those connections that they have with the club. And also we need to be honest at times and say, look, if someone doesn't step up now, this isn't going to happen, and just apply a bit of pressure while selling the benefits of you're not going to be on your own. We're going to support you with resources and mentoring to help you. So, yeah, that's how we do it. We do it through data and then just getting to know our audience, really.
And I think, obviously, the key then is valuing them, like you said. So I think people will always help if they feel appreciated. And I think that's key. Like, if you go and help someone and you don't feel appreciated, you're not likely to do it again. And that's interesting about finding all that information. What I would say about your coaches that I've worked with on coaching courses in the community, etc., is they come across as, not the difference in coaching is obviously there. Some that have never coached, some that have coached loads and are obsessed with football, but they're all got the kids' interests at heart. That's what I would say I've experienced with the coaches, and they're all trying to learn and wanting to learn, and that comes down to a kind of the culture. So how do you grow that culture within the club, and what would you say is, if I said to you, right, what would you see as the perfect culture that if you could get that, great, what would you describe that as for Strikeforce?
Yeah, well, first of all, we don't always get it right. Let's be honest with that. We're constantly having to evolve and adapt to challenges, be it appointing volunteers, players, number of teams, being inclusive, making sure our environment and our facilities are inclusive. So we don't always get it right. However, I think we want to look at good people. What does a good person look like, and what do their values? So are they committed? Are they in it for the right reasons? And are players at the heart of that, really? So you're right. I think we do have some really good people in our club that care and show empathy. So I think that's a key part of our culture, is getting good people. As we get bigger, and me and Gary talk about this all the time, is we get people to events or our celebration day at the end of the year or functions that we put on. I don't know everyone there now. Yeah. I might be able to say, I think I know who they are and what team. And that's, one hand, that's really impressive because it shows how well we grow, but it's a little bit sad at times that I don't know everyone. So we rely on almost levels of good people. So I need good people around me. So we've got Simon, who's women and girls, who's an expert in women and girls and working with those volunteers, who then goes and recruits good people to support women and girls. We've got the disability side with Wayne and Tim now, who go and recruit good people to look after the disability side. So I think it's almost at the top, we need to role model what good people look like and say, look, this is how we act, this is how we expect the officers under us to act, and then that allows them to recruit underneath. So I think for me, look, coaching is about tactics, and it is about putting on good functional sessions where we can improve players. But at the end of the day, we're dealing with people. So if we want them to be good people who fulfill their purpose in life, whatever that might be, then we need good people working with them.
That's massively important. So the empathy thing, you got people with empathy. I'd done a podcast with Chris the other day who works for TSC, but is a rugby coach and has a social work background. And I was talking to him about, well, how do you deal with kids that might be struggling with stuff, with families that might be struggling like in a sporting environment, and how do you build those relationships? And he was like, just empathy. That's it. You've just got to show empathy all the time. And a quote that I've stolen from you on coaching courses when I've been tutoring has been about, most of the kids you coach won't be footballers, but they're all going to need to get a job and go into employment. Expand on why that's so important to you as probably as a coach rather than someone running a club.
Yeah, well, if Faversham Strikeforce was my business and my business was about making pro footballers, we wouldn't last very long. We wouldn't last because the rate of becoming a professional footballer is getting really hard. So let's be realistic that everyone is going to become a citizen of the town or the country and is going to be a representation of those that they've encountered and influence their life, be it in a good way or negative way or however. So it's really important to provide them with them skills. So I can remember when my team now, the first meeting we had the parents at under sevens, I was like, look, I'm more concerned of, is your child still going to be physically active playing sport at under 18s and beyond, and can I help them be employable or get into further or higher education? That for me is the main thing, and it's about through that CV embellishment and role modelling what good looks like. I think coming back to your empathy point, I heard a really good quote at the weekend was a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. And that's essentially what we're doing. We've got to inspire other people to see shine and light and fulfil their potential. So for me, absolutely, as a coach and working with young people, I want them to be the best they can. I want them to be in 20, 30 years' time, be in the job they want to be physically active, have good mental health, gone and achieve whatever they want, have families if that's what they want, travel the world if that's what they want, really enhance their lives and make the best with what they've got.
And I think that's what I always use. I always say now, when I'm working with coaches and I'm talking about the kids' attitudes on the pitch or the kids' behaviours on the pitch, and I say, especially where the situation you always get, you get a really good kid, really good player, affects the game a lot, but sometimes has a terrible attitude. And I say to coaches, well, what lessons are you teaching that kid? Because try to create kids that you would employ when you're older. So if you run your own business, would you give them a job? If you work somewhere, would you want them working alongside you? Would you want them being your boss? So actually, if you've got a player that doesn't work well in the team, criticises teammates, is late, talks back to referees or shouts at referees, that's a kid that's going to not get on in a work environment because they're always going to have a go at authority or get in trouble at work or not be showing the attitude that you want in work. So would you want to employ that person? So I'm always challenging coaches to set out guidelines, understand that you're working with kids, they're going to make mistakes, but set out standards that will make them employable, will make them be successful in life. And really, they're not going to make it as professional footballers, a lot of them. Some of them might do. Some of them might go and play semi-pro, but even if they're semi-pro, they're still going to work. So what life skills can you teach these kids to help them be successful in life? I think that's really important. That's something I stole from you there. With that, the other thing I stole from you, which shows that you had a big influence on my coaching and tutoring especially, is about the kind of rules you set for your teams and how you kind of represent that in your grassroots teams. The 3 words you used to have, you said that you got your 4 rules and stuff like that. In the simplistic way that you do that, I think is really effective. So can you kind of go through that in a bit of detail for us?
Yeah, thank you for that. So I'm one, because the way my mind works and my dyslexia and stuff like that, and I need it functionally set out, I like everything to be clear and really easy to understand, and that's what I try to get across to my players. So the team I'm with now, we have 4 rules, which is family first, no jerks, no slackers, and no negativity. I just had to look at my notes then. So
that's all right.
So they're the 4 rules, and I'll go into them a little bit of detail, but they're the 4 rules. If you went to my training session and asked the players what our 4 rules were, I would like to think 90% of them would be able to rattle them off straight away. The others might need some prompting and might deliver it with different words but the same meaning. So the first rule is around family first, and that's about when we're at training or a match, we are one family. Now, families don't always get along, they don't always agree, but ultimately they're there for each other and they back each other up and they look after each other. And if a family member's struggling, we help each other. If a family member's out of line, we might question them. But at the end of the day, we're all there for the one, and we put our family first. So we talk about family first. No slackers is pretty obvious. Look, let's try and give 100% all of the time. Now, I'm realistic that doesn't always happen. You might have a bad day. We all have bad days where you might turn up and might think, actually, I can't give it because physically or mentally I'm not quite there today. But can we try and be the best version of ourselves there? No negativity is straightforward, and that is down to me and my coaches as well. And I challenge the players. If on a match day at half time, I'm being negative, then someone put their hand up or drag me to one side and say, I thought you was out of line there, or I think you're being too negative. Absolutely, and it's happened. And I want my other coaches to challenge me, and I want to be in a position to challenge them and go, look, are we being as positive as we can here? And then the other one is no jerks, which could be a number of different words depending on what level you're on, but everyone knows not to be a jerk. So look, turn up and contribute positively, add value. Don't always turn up late. Turn up prepared, turn up with a positive attitude, don't be jerks. And then if we've got them 4 rules, everyone knows those, everyone can contribute to them, they're in your control to contribute them, but also they're easy for me to go, actually, I don't think you're contributing now. I don't know if it's because of those 4 rules, but the team I've got now is I can't remember ever having to drag them on behaviour. Because they know when someone's out of line, and I can see them dragging each other and going, look, come on, we're slacking here, or don't be negative, let's keep going, or you need to go and look after that player because they're a little bit down. So we have that, and that's really allowed us to set out our stall around what our values are.
And that's really important, because for me, none of that's around technical, tactical, none of it's around results. It's about attitude and when you're there. And I've got this challenge now that I'm coaching, obviously, my boys under 7s this year. And I expect to allow them freedom. I expect them, they'll rotate positions, they'll play equal playing time. But also on the flip side, I still expect, when you're training at football, I want 100%. And I'm trying to get the message across to my boy at the minute that, because he doesn't like losing. I don't know where he gets it from, but and I've started beating him all the time in the garden now just to kind of get him used to it. But I'm just trying to get across to him that if you've given it everything you've got and you lose, that's fine. There's no problem with that, because you can't do anything more. You reflect on it, you can try and improve and then go forward. But if you only give it 75% and you lose, then I probably will criticise you for it, because you're not putting everything in. So the losing is not an issue at all, but the effort has to be there. And I don't like fluffy things. I don't like going in. I want things to be inclusive. I want football clubs to be open to all kids. I want all kids to come and get good coaching, and I want them to be pushed. But I also don't want it to be, oh, you can just do what you want, let's just mess around, let's just do this. It should still be like, when you're here, we're going to really focus on trying to achieve what we're trying to achieve. And that doesn't have to have anything to do with results. It might be, right, when you're here, we are going to just support each other. So if people make mistakes, you support people. If people do really well, you support them. If things aren't going great, we still support each other. And if that's what you set out as success, everyone needs to buy into it. And then the skill of the coach is going, how do we set this up so that we can challenge them? And then also understand, this is not always going to go smooth. This is going to be bumps in the road, and that's where I've got to come in and work with players. So as a club, you want to be inclusive for all kids and adults as well. I'm going to go at this with like a 2-tiered question of, as a club, how do you make everything inclusive? But then you as a coach within your team, when you're coaching your team, how do you make that set coaching session inclusive as well?
Yeah, I think it's really key more than ever in society to be inclusive. We're growing the women's and girls game, which is seen a huge spike, and that's going to grow even more with the projected numbers from the FA. It's just staggering, and how that's going to grow. And the more success that we see through the Women's Super League and the Lionesses, England Lionesses, it's going to grow even more because people are going to be inspired. And plus, clubs are opening their doors and seeing actually we do need to be representative of our community. But it's not just about women and girls, it's around those with disabilities or long-term health conditions, underrepresented groups. Our society is changing. We've got migration from cities, so London coming down to the southeast, etc. So our communities are changing, and then if you think about the southeast, particularly Kent, around migration, immigration, refugees and stuff, like the culture's changing, and we need to be prepared for that. I think one of the key things as a club is recognising you need to surround yourself by diverse decision makers. So we can't have a board of trustees for Farrish and Strike Force of Charities that is just white, middle-aged men. Because how can I make a decision around how can we make our environment inclusive? So we surround ourselves with good people like Natalie from London Lionesses, Ruth, who's our club secretary, who can then check and challenge us on that. And we're going to add to our charity with representation from people with disabilities or long-term health conditions, so they can challenge us around that. And it's even really simple stuff around that I might not see as a problem, but the lighting to our pitch, our 3G. Now, I don't have a problem with walking down a pathway to our 3G in the dark, but a young person, someone with disabilities who can't see where they're stepping, or women and girls who might not feel safe in that environment at that time. So recently we've looked at the lighting, we've updated female toilets to make sure they're more welcoming, they're not just these bog standard toilets, because that doesn't affect me and you when we go to the toilet as much as it might. We want women and girls to come to our facility and think, actually, one, they've made an effort, but two, I don't mind using these. So we always need to check and challenge that, but we also need to dig deeper around the stuff that I don't recognise. So not just having the same kit, so a different fitted kit for our female coaches and our players needs to be different to the men's kit, and we need to recognise that and purchase kit that they feel comfortable in, and they feel able to not only perform, but they feel part of the club. And we've actually thought about that, even down to the minute point, which has been a challenge this year due to supply. But when we give out awards at our celebration day, the player on the plinth is traditionally male. That isn't right to give a female, and we struggled this year just because supply and demand. But we need to recognise that that player needs to be a female player. Getting that trophy needs to have a female person on that plinth, and all the way to the point around what we're doing around kit and equipment. Are we making sure that the women's and girls teams are equally supplied with the right resources? It's not always the men's teams that's getting everything, it's the females. And also just looking at our representation on social media, are we portraying good role models? Is it always the pictures of the boys and the men's, or are women and girls represented so people can see it and do it? We're also looking at a club around barriers around, we understand that dads really have a profound effect in the girls' game because they step up and they might be more confident, but actually we need female representation within our coaching workforce. So we're looking at how can we reduce barriers around developing confidence that mums can step forward and coach just as well as dads. How can we support them with mentoring and qualifications and the right kit and equipment that they can step forward? So we're going to launch an initiative around that called This Mum Can. So we're going to do that. We're going to offer more recreational sessions so mums can start to play the game and feel confident that they now understand the game. For me as a coach, I try to be inclusive. I try to get to know my players. What makes them tick, what are their motivations, get to know their families, have they got siblings. When they turn up at my session, it's a high five, handshake, how was your day? I don't let them get away with yes or no answers, especially at under 15s, under 14s, they're pretty good at grunting and saying yes, no, it was all right, it was poor, I didn't enjoy school. It's like, okay, what did you enjoy about it? Tell me one thing you did enjoy. And I'll give you a really good example is, we've got a coach and two players that fast every year, part of Ramadan and stuff like that. As a coach, I don't know enough about that. So I spoke to him and said, look, would you be willing at the start of training to have a question and answer session? So we ask questions of, why do you fast? What's your religion? How does this affect you when you're training and matches? And then I put it out to the players around, ask questions, and one of the questions was, which comes back to that family first bit, is what can we do to help you? And they were like, well, just encourage me because I'm going to probably be running low on fuel. You might see me go off and eat my snacks or take more water on board, or I might need to sit down because I'm being a little lightheaded. Just support me or ignore me and understand. So I think that's just getting to know people and also educate yourself or ask questions of why.
One thing that's come up in my mind there, you've obviously got a full-time job as well. How do you gather all this feedback from everyone, especially when you've got so many volunteers? But how do you also stop yourself getting overwhelmed? Because I think when you ask for feedback, even if you say, normally feedback comes back as things people want to improve. So you can preempt that by saying, give us 2 things that are really good, 2 things that you would change or improve. People normally, I think it's a natural instinct with feedback, is go with the more critical side. How do you prioritise and how do you not get overwhelmed by looking at it and thinking, because you do all these amazing things, but it's easy to then see, well, if you get 160 people give 2 things that can be improved, how do you manage that kind of mentally and in terms of what you prioritise?
Yeah, and I think in football that's really hard because everyone's got an opinion.
Yeah.
It's brilliant that everyone's got an opinion. Most of them are nonsense, let's be fair.
Yeah.
And based on not facts, not academic, not experience. It's just a thought they've had in their head.
And normally, and also a lot of the time it's selfish needs of I want. Not something that's better for everyone. It's saying, well, this would be better for me, so I'll say that.
Yeah, it's really good. I suppose if you're looking to gain feedback about how you can do something better, is one, have a real clear vision of why you're doing it. Don't just do surveys for the sake of it. So if you're doing, for instance, we surveyed the mums in the club and surveyed via Facebook because we wanted to understand what the barriers were. So really be specific of what's your barriers, what could we do to help you get over those barriers. So that allows us to get some really good feedback of this is what we need to change and this is how we change it. So I think if you can understand around why you're doing it and why you're gathering the feedback, you're almost halfway there. But you do need to be able to be judged. People are all, like you say, it's not always going to be positive and rainbows and unicorns and happy stuff. People are going to say, well, what about this? If you're going to take it personal, then don't ask for the feedback.
Yeah.
Okay, because all you're going to do is go, no, we already do that. If people are saying stuff in your feedback and you think, well, we already do that, well, then start promoting it more that you already do that. If someone's coming to you and they're saying, well, you don't do enough around women and girls, for example, and you're like, well, we do lots, then you need to promote it more so people can see it and recognise you do it. But have a vision of why you want to gain feedback, totally understand where you want to do, and be prepared that you might get challenged. So if you can go into it with an open mind that we're going to get challenged here and we're willing to put time and resources around it, then that's fine. But yeah, and also when you do it, when you've got that feedback, just make sure you action it, because otherwise, if people keep providing you feedback and you don't action it, then people won't trust the reasons you're doing it for. So they want to see a result. So you almost want to do what some of the top businesses are really good at is, you said this, we did this.
Yeah. Because
if I'm a customer, I can see you cared and you've made my experience better. So if you can do that as a football club or a grassroots organisation, then you're on the right path.
I'd be interested to know about the barriers for mums and females, because my partner doesn't like football. She doesn't like football. She's never played sport at school, hated sport at school, typical kind of had negative feelings towards it from her upbringing at school. She brought my boys to one of our first team games last year, and it's a nice community feel at the club, loads of kids there, and she loved it. And she actually genuinely expressed an interest. She was like, I'd like to try and play football. I was having no interest in football or sport her whole life, but there's nothing. And especially for someone that's probably not, has never played, probably is not overly confident to go into that environment, but actually if you gave her 10 people that were similar that said, oh, I just want to have a go at it, especially because now their kids are doing it and stuff like that, she would give it a go, I think. But there's nothing there at the moment. What barriers did you kind of come up with? Was it similar to that?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I'm a white male, middle-aged man. I'm not the right person to be speaking around what are barriers to minority groups.
Yeah.
I think through my experience of being in football development for almost 25 years, I understand that. Through my job now, it's all about community engagement and understanding how we can make facilities more inclusive and also meet the strategic need of our communities of like why are we putting these sessions on? Are they just fluffy, nice to have, tick a box? Or actually, does our community tell us they're there? What we got from the feedback was barriers around, I don't feel confident of coaching in front of people. I don't feel confident in my tactical and technical ability. I don't understand football enough. And then it was around time. I'm a full-time mum, or actually, when I take my daughter to training, I'm looking after another child as well. So it's about actually how can we, so if you think about them, if you flip them around and think about how do we reduce some barriers, well, building up confidence could be through mentoring and developing groups and making sure you've got that opportunity to go and say to someone, how do I do this? How did you do that? Which we do all the time. And then if you think about the technical and tactical confidence, I would say most volunteers who step forward in coaching, that's probably one of their barriers. It's not just a female one, but I do get why it might be more prevalent in that area. It's around, let's showcase it. Let's put on more, this is what good practice looks like. This is how you coach this element of the game. Here's a load of session plans of how you do it and what do you need. And then coming back to the time element, I imagine that's across the board around I haven't got time because I've got too much work or I've got other family members. It's about going, well, what can you give? Can you do the warm-up? Can you do match days? Can you just do training? What can you afford within your time to give? We're looking at a recreational session for women to come along to just play, that unity, camaraderie, sharing challenges, while also keeping fit and maybe developing that confidence is, I now understand how the game looks like and how it's played. But I need to surround myself at the club, and we need to be better at it, of getting those groups who are underrepresented within our club or who have not got opportunities being delivered by those who understand them more than ever.
Yeah, and so I suppose it's finding them, and the role models is a massive part of that. Going on from parents, because we're talking about parents volunteering, etc. there. Divisive subject in grassroots football, parents, because of touchline behaviour, kind of maybe parents' ambitions for kids. I have my own thoughts on it, which I'll kind of share after I let you talk. But how do you? And I don't like the term deal with parents. I prefer the term how do you work with parents, like in your team, at your club. What do you think the best ways to work with parents are?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. I think if you think of our time as mentors and tutors together, it's probably one of the ones that comes up a lot from coaches. I do get it and I do understand the challenges, but I think sometimes as a volunteer, when you have to deal with parents and guardians and carers, we've immediately got our back up. Straight away, off the bat, we're like, yeah, by the way, parents are going to be a nightmare for you. Parents are going to be the worst thing about your volunteer experience. And it's like, if you go into anything in life thinking it's going to be a nightmare right off the bat, then you're always a few steps away from where you want to get to. So for me, my advice and tips would be to dealing with parents, and how I do it is be honest, transparent and consistent with your message. So first of all, set out to the parents, what are you hoping to achieve with this team and as a individual coach? Because, for example, if you're like, oh, I'm fun, this is going to be inclusive, we're not here, it's not always about the 3 points and goals scored and making sure we win. It's not about that. It's about everyone being fun and enjoying their football experience. And then as soon as you go 1-0 down, it's like, right, I need to make subs because I need to take off my perceived weaker players and get the good ones on to turn this around and save face. If you do that, then immediately there's going to be parents that are there that are going, well, hang on a minute, you told us you was fun, inclusive environment, it wasn't about results, but as soon as it starts going wrong, we're on you. So I think it's that, and I think it's about being transparent. You and I have learned, well, especially me, have learned along this journey, if you're not transparent, football will bite you in the backside, some way or another. If you're like, we're equal playing time, but then you don't do equal playing time, I will guarantee there's someone on the sideline that is counting the minutes and will be able to prove that you haven't done equal playing time. So if you come back to the honest and transparent element of that, if you're then turning around and going, well, I'm going to always put out my strongest team, and I'm not going to do equal playing time, it's whoever is best, then I don't agree with that. But at least you're being honest and transparent, and I can't challenge you when my son's not getting on. It's my choice then to go, you don't align with my values and behaviours, and I don't think we're going down the road to another club or going somewhere else. So I think it's that. And then it comes, that all links to consistency. Be consistent. So one of our, I wouldn't say rules, I think rules is too harsh within my team. It's if you're late for the warm-up, if there's 11 players that turn up before you, them 11 are going to start. And that includes the goalkeeper, okay? Which is a nightmare for me, because if you think, I can't prepare my team sheet or my subs, but that sets out there. Now, if my good player is always late and I still always start them, I'm not being consistent, I've not been transparent, I've not been honest, so it all does that. So make sure you're them three elements. For me, I like to have good relationships with the parents, but I try to keep it as professional as I can. So I get to know them, but at some point, I might need to turn around to them. It's a bit like you employing coaches. At some point, you might need to turn around to them and say, I'm sorry, but your kid's been a nightmare in the session, or I'm sorry, but your kid keeps turning up late. I can't keep letting this happen because it's affecting our values and everything. You might now have to have a difficult conversation. So don't be that one that you're always having a pint with after the game and being friendly and pally, because you might need to deliver good news as well as negative news. So be prepared for that. I always joke around, we have a parents WhatsApp group. I like it grey, dull and boring, our WhatsApp group. I don't want interaction on there. I like likes and elements like that, but I want it grey and boring. This is when training is. Well done on the match today. Here's some photos or videos. Like it, share it. But we can you can drag me after the game or after training or before or after or whenever you want and tell me your opinion. But I don't want you putting it out in the public domain. Not because I'm worried about being challenged. That's your opinion. I'm doing it this way. I've been honest with you, been transparent, and I'm consistent, and this is how I'm doing it.
Yeah, we're using Teamer instead of WhatsApp. One, because I'm dreadful on WhatsApp, and two, because I don't want that where it can cause debate or anything like that, which I've not had anything like that yet, but ultimately that can happen. Just one other thing with the parents then is, I agree, you've got to be consistent and honest, and if you say, look, I'm all about winning, and then that's it. As long as you're honest about that and consistent, that's not a problem. I think another challenge comes though, is if your philosophy might align with the parents' philosophy. The parents' philosophy doesn't always align with what the kid actually wants. And it's got to be a three-way thing there, where the parent, the coach and the kid have all got to want the same thing. Have you had experiences where the parent and the kid have got different outlooks on what they're trying to get out of the game?
Yeah, I think that probably comes to I think that happens when the parent might have a different opinion on their football ability.
Yeah.
So it might be a case of, I think you should be here in terms of performance, but realistically they're here and they might just be playing with their mates, have no ambition to be here, and it's about understanding like what's right for them. Look, I've been in the game long enough, grassroots game, that stuff just washes off my back. People are allowed their opinions. I know what I'm about. I've tried to be honest. I've tried to be transparent. I've tried to be consistent with you. That's it. I think if you can do those with the players as well and go, by the way, as long as you turn up on time, it's different subs every week. So everyone knows you might be sub this week, and that's part of life, isn't it? Sometimes you're the main attraction, sometimes you're not. Sometimes someone's better than you, sometimes they're not, and understand that. So I think if you can be honest, transparent and consistent with the players, then that's your whole environment. And it's no different if you're in a business and the senior management team are doing this and then the employees are doing this. If you're all on the same philosophy and values and there's honest and transparency, then that's really good. If you think about the organisation I'm with now, I really enjoy working with the CEO because he's honest and transparent as much as he can be. When he talks, I feel he's talking from the heart and he's telling me everything possible. So when I'm in an organisation, I know what their vision is, I know where they're going, and I know they're consistent and transparent and honesty. And that's no different to football. If you think about you're at the top, then the parents or the players are there, as long as everyone knows what the message is and philosophy is, then buy in. I understand you're working with under 7, so the language you use might be different, but just use different words and different techniques.
Just before we get to the last part of the podcast, it'd be great if you could follow the TSC Coaches Club on all social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can follow us for free on Patreon, and you can listen to the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If you could subscribe to those channels, it will be a great help to us. Thanks again for listening. Okay, just to finish off our chat, something we ask everyone. What is the one thing that you love about grassroots football? And if you were in charge of grassroots football across the whole country, what would you change?
Yeah, it's a really good question. What do I love about grassroots football? Subject to what we've already talked about certain barriers for certain individual groups, but I think football is pretty inclusive. If you look at Forest and Strikeforce, we've got kids from affluent areas, and we've got children from areas of deprivation that come in. We've got people with disabilities, long-term health conditions, male, female. It's inclusive. It naturally is inclusive. No one's really judged when they turn up on what their postcode is or what their background is. They're normally judged on their playing ability at the end of the day, aren't they? That element is when people make their decision, but it's inclusive. So that's what I love about grassroots football, is how it can be representative of your community and everyone can get involved. If I was in charge of grassroots football across the country, if I had a magic lamp with a genie in, I would just build more 3Gs. I understand around the green agenda that 3Gs isn't great and stuff, but at the end of the day, you can get lots more people playing and active from all walks of life through a 3G. So that's what I do, and that will increase every demographic of football participation to grow. So if we had unlimited budgets and that's what I'd do. I think for me, when I was thinking about this, if I didn't have that budget, I'd probably look at how we run leagues and competitions in the country. So around the formats is I understand that the older age groups, why a 9-month season, September till May or whenever it is traditional and it works for some people. I think there's an opportunity to look at the formats and what we do. Is it right that a team goes through a league absolutely smashing people, not really challenged? Is that good for players? Is it good for the people involved? Is it maximising them? Is it motivating them? Or is there a way to deliver a format that might be, come January, we look at doing something different? Which, if you think about the Forest and District League, they've seen unprecedented growth in the last 5 years, because if you get to September to January and you're excelling or you're struggling in your division, you get a fresh start to go up a division or stay where you are or go down and be challenged against teams. That's why that's grown. I think if we can get all leagues to buy into different formats, be it looking like Champions League format or more cup competitions or anything like that, I think people would be more engaged. They'd be challenged at a reasonable level to go on and fulfil and feel engaged as well. That if you get to October and you're getting smashed every week, and you've got to get till May, getting smashed in your division every week, people are going to drop out and fall out of love with being active. It's no different when me and you did PE and you was made to do laps or made to have a shower afterwards with a group of lads, and it was just like, you look back on it now and you was like, think what he was doing. That has a profound effect on people growing up who go, I don't like being active, I don't like going to the gym, I don't like being in groups who are active, I don't like being sweaty, I don't like being active. And we need to find different ways of making sure we inspire people. And for me, different formats and different ways of delivering league formats is key.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time. Loads of really good stuff in there, really appreciate it. And just before you go, where can people find you on kind of social media or online?
Well, they can find me on Twitter and Instagram if they want to do it. Probably best reaching out to me via email. If If people email me, I'm more likely to respond there. If people WhatsApp, I'll probably forget. So people can reach out to me however they want. Reach out for me through the podcast. I'm more than happy to grab a brew with people as long as they buy me a cake and have a chat with them.
And that's where we're off to now. Get you a cake. Brilliant. Thanks, mate.
Thank you.